This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. We'll call the monthly meeting of the TAC to order. It's,
Can we double check? Actually, we don't.
you don't?
Sorry.
Okay.
I can't read that far, these glasses.
Okay. I see Justin, I see
Justin is not.
Elizabeth, Brad's there,
We have two of the big five.
big five. You and I are not counted on that one. I don't know.
No, we don't have a quorum yet. We can go ahead and start, but we can't do any action items.
Okay,
So,
we'll just skip to the,
until we get one more person.
okay. All right, we'll call the meeting to order. We won't have any action items. I'll open it up to any public comment. Is anybody here from the public, online or in person, that wants to make a comment? Nobody in the room? Anybody online?
No.
Okay. Okay, we'll open it up.
Okay.
Eric, okay, Eric's here.
Yeah, so we have.
And then I'll open it up for either comments or a motion to approve the December 20th meeting minutes.
Motion approved.
We have a second?
Can I have a second? Yeah, you guys have a second.
Thank you. Let's move on to the first item of the agenda, air quality agenda, regional air quality updates. Tom, you online?
I certainly am.
Go for it.
I don't have anything new to report today, so no report.
Thank you. No items on the consent agenda, so we'll skip through that. And we can't do the action items?
We
Oh,
can do
can
that.
now? Okay.
Yeah, now that Eric is trying to see.
Okay, so the first action item is fiscal year 2024 program and projects. Joshua Ma.
He is online.
Is he online?
Yeah.
Hi, apologies. Did y'all say my name?
Yeah. We're on your item.
Oh, hi. This is for our 2024 program of projects. For our 5307, 5310, and 5339 apportionments. We held a public meeting back on December 12th. We did not have anyone in attendance. We did not receive any feedback on the program of projects, but we did advertise it in the Coloradoan and on our public website for 2 weeks. Was just trying to bring it up for recommendation for approval. We have outlined how we would use our funding for each program, and that's pretty much it.
Any questions or comments? Discussion? Seeing none in the house. Anybody online?
And this will be an action item at the council meeting in February, and then it will be incorporated through the TIC process once it is approved by councils.
So basically, we're opening that up to a motion to approve and move forward to the council.
To recommend approval.
Recommend approval to the council. We have a motion on the line or no?
Nobody said anything yet.
This is Eric. I'll move to approve that.
I'll second.
Thank you, and we'll have a vote, and anybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the January 24 TIP amendment. Anna Rose.
Thank you. The TIP, the amendment to the 2024 to 2027 TIP for January includes programming all of the new projects that were approved by Planning Council into the TIP. And there are 10 new projects. I won't go line by line for all of these projects for you, but they are included in the packet and in the TIP tables that's in the packet. The Planning Council approved the 2023 call for projects at their meeting on January 11th. The public comment for the January TIP amendment began on January 16th and will conclude on February 15th. We do have an equity analysis that has been put together that was not included in the handouts, but we will send it out following this meeting. And so if you want to just scroll down to that. This is, because it was all the new projects from the call for projects, the equity analysis was what was provided during the call by project sponsors. Yes, so the public comment will conclude on February 15th, and so looking for any questions or comments about the TIP amendment.
Any comments in the room or online?
Nothing online.
Nothing online. Seeing none, I'll open it up to a motion.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
And so we'll open it up. Anybody in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carried.
I'm gonna abstain. Thank you.
Just a point of clarification, Tom, you are a non-voting member. The RAC is a non-voting member of the TAC.
Okay, well, that would be helpful to remind me of. Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the 2020 to 2024 North Fork Range NPO targets for safety performance measures. Anna Rose.
Thank you. Last month, I presented to the TAC the options for setting the federal performance measures and targets for the safety performance measures for 2020 to 2024. And I presented the two options that we have, which is either to support the statewide targets or to set regionally specific targets. In the past, we have set targets by approving the statewide targets and agreeing to plan and program projects to support those targets. But given the current safety climate, thought it would make more sense starting this year to set regionally specific targets. And at the Planning Council meeting last week, this was also a discussion, and Planning Council was also in favor of setting the regionally specific targets. So the table that I have here on the far right side is the targets that we will be setting for 2020 to 2024 for the 5 safety performance measures. And so if there are any questions or concerns about that, I will take those now. If not, this is an action item. These targets are due to CDOT by the end of next month.
Does this go back to council one more time?
For approval, yes. So we are asking for TAC's recommendation for planning council approval.
And then one other point of clarification, 716 is item number 1, is statewide, 39 is just region. So if you were to extrapolate that out the street statewide, what would that make?
So the 716 includes, that's the full state, so that
Yes.
includes the 39 that was in the North Front Range
Okay.
region. So those were the targets they set,
Mhm.
which is estimating what will happen for 2023 and 2024 as well.
Okay, all right. So
But the
39
is a
included in that.
subset
Okay,
of the 716.
I understand. Thank you. Any other questions in the room or online?
Nothing online.
I'll open it up to a motion.
This is Eric. I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. It was Eric and Nicole. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Next item is a presentation via Mobility Weld County Services. Adriana.
Okay, thank you everyone for having me. I'm Adriana Torres with Via Mobility Services. We are currently providing a service with the Weld County. It is a paratransit service. About Via, our founding mission is to promote independence and self-sufficiency for people with limited mobility by providing caring, customer-focused transportation options. And of course, we support resilience and freedom. All of our services provide a lifeline and a bridge to the community for our clients, especially for those who are older adults and people with disabilities. We were founded in 1979. We are a private nonprofit organization, and we grew from being a small nonprofit servicing just Boulder to a multi-county community transportation provider. So via paratransit and our founding mission service, we provide service to Weld County residents. They can ride within our service area for free. We are a door-through-door service available for older adults who are 60 plus or have a disability. Door-through-door basically means that we will go all the way to your door. If you have to go to the 3rd floor of a hospital, we will make sure that we take you all the way up to the 3rd floor. And same on the return home. We are going to look for you, and we just want to make sure that everybody gets to their destination safely. To register, you can call our mobility department. Our phone number is 303-444-3043. Takes about 10 minutes. You'll speak to someone, and then you'll get registered. Okay. So how did it all start? It started with us providing and partnering up with the North Front Range NPO. We provided free service to residents who lived anywhere in that blue area. The service ran from August 2021 to February 2022. It was Monday through Friday from 8 to 3:30 p.m. And we provided many trips to various destinations, including Boulder County and Brighton. Over the course of 7 months, we provided 454 trips. We registered 34 riders, and the service was provided with 1 bus. Now, as of August of 2023, this is how it's going. This map over here to my right You will see all of the destinations of where people are going. Again, the service is free and it's provided in partnership with the North Fern Range NPO and the Upper Fern Range Transportation Planning Region, as well as the Weld County Board of Commissioners and local communities. Riders can get anywhere they need to go, including connecting with other transit services like the Mustang, Dial a Ride, and other transit services. The service began August 1st in 2023, and now it runs Monday to Friday from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Over 5 months, so from August 1st to December 31st of 2023, we provided 555 trips. We have a total of 95 registered riders, 71 new riders, and 24 from our previous pilot that we did. From those 555 trips, we also provided trips to 12 caregivers that went along with our riders. And the service is provided with 2 buses this time. This is the area that we serve. We service residents from Alt, Fort Lupton, Johnstown, LaSalle, Kersey, Gilchrist, Hudson, Kingsburg, Nunn, Platteville, and parts of unincorporated Weld County. Anything in the blue area is where the riders can travel to. As you can see, we can take them all the way up to Cheyenne. Okay. Additional communities are invited to join. Communities can pay for a portion of the transportation service based on the town's population. To learn more, please contact Evan and Elizabeth. There is their contact information if you don't have it. And I will open up to any questions.
Any recent communities signed up for that? Because I think Evans would be interested in that for sure.
So the latest one, or it joined after, was LaSalle.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be in touch.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, we have several communities in the Upper Front Range that we've been partnering with, and then with our North Range, Front Range communities. We've had Johnstown on board with us since the beginning, and then more recently, just through some communication, we had LaSalle join us, which we were really happy with. But we've had different talks with other communities, and just want to have more jump on board. I think it's good to pool resources and get everybody together on this. And our goal is to really just make it countywide as much as possible. And we have another program that's running in the Carbon Valley area through Dr. Cog, but it was done more direct with via mobility, and leverage some other dollars for that. And it was it's a really good program for those 3 communities down there. Dacono, Firestone, and Frederick. But I think eventually we want to kind of pool it all together and make it a countywide program. Kind of makes it a struggle for us because we're in the 3 different transportation planning regions. So sometimes going to get those dollars is a little different and leveraging it all together. But VIA's been a great partner for us, and we're really excited about what 2024 brings and next year as well, and continuing the program. So be happy to have more conversations with Evans and other communities and keep the ball rolling on this.
So you're up to 2 buses. Is it 2 buses is it enough to handle what your demand is?
If I can, I'm gonna go back a few slides here. We do cover such a large area, so yeah, sometimes we do have a couple of denials, not as much as other services, but we cover such a huge area where the bus can only be at one place at the same time. And this is basically where 2023 from August 1st to December 31st, where everybody traveled. I mean, Johnstown seems to be the most used area, but we went from Kingsburg into our Brighton area, Lafayette, but we go all the way down to even a little bit of Broomfield as well.
Can you talk about how your funding is gathered? I mean, just talk about how you're funded.
Yeah, so for North Front Range, we are funded a lot through MMOF, and then we have a local match as well. So we've gathered local match from ourselves, LaSalle, and Johnstown for this particular program. For Upper Front Range, we were able to add in $5311 that VA was so gracious to help us out with the program and add those in. But it's also funded through NMOF and local match through the different communities. We base local match off of community population. So if we do have additional municipalities come on board, we kind of recalculate and look at what the population is.
Adriana, I know one of the questions that has come up a few times is, so there's the service pickup area and then there's the wider drop-off area. If someone, let's say, is going from Gilchrist to Fort Collins for whatever reason, they would book the round trip and then the bus would come and pick them up to bring them back. Like, how does that work if you're
Yes.
going outside of the pickup area?
Great question. So anytime someone is booking a trip, we always advise them to book the pickup from home, going there, and the return home, just to make sure that we have the availability and we don't want to leave anybody stranded. So yes, it is recommended that you book that round trip at the initial call. And they can book a trip calling our call center, or they can download our app, or as well book it online.
I'm sorry to go back to money, but always the underlying, what's the operating budget on this? Just curious.
Different for each funding source, but it's about a couple $100,000
To make this
for
program
2
work.
years. Yeah, so I'd have to look at my numbers. I can get them over to you.
No,
but,
that's okay, I'm just curious, just off the cuff.
Just to run one bus, basically it's, what it is operating cost is like $90, I think, for VIA to do per hour.
Correct.
And then typically they run 50 hours a week, but 40 hours of service and then 10 hours of deadhead time. So, yeah, just kind of looking at it, if you extrapolate that out through the year, I mean, they run, I think, 50 weeks a year, so whatever that adds up to, I need to look.
Yes, and then of course, depending on the weather, like on Monday, we did have to close the service due to safety reasons.
So did I hear like 200,000 is a?
I think it's about 100,000 a year, but I have to
Just
check
curious.
per bus.
Per bus, okay.
Is there a fare? That's all I'm missing.
It is a free service to the rider.
But donations are exempt.
Yes, donations are.
Tip the driver.
And we've really kind of, focused the program towards the elderly and people with disabilities, especially in the North Front Range area. For Upper Front Range, we serve everyone. It's kind of a stipulation of the 5311 funding. But again, it's kind of focusing more on those groups, but we allow anyone to ride in the Upper Front Range, so.
Perfect.
And the buses are wheelchair accessible, I'm assuming.
Yes.
And the bus capacities, I'm assuming are they 12 passenger vans or the actual buses?
The ones that we're using is we have a 14 passenger and we also have a transit van that takes up to 8 people.
Okay.
And they're both accessible.
Accessible.
Mhm.
So extrapolating out when you perceive needing another bus,
Yeah,
right after Athens comes off of?
Yeah, no, and, we have a lot of conversations, especially with Johnstown and Fort Lupton. They're getting to that stage where they're kind of looking at, do we get one of these buses for our own town and run it ourselves? And I think this program is helping them make that decision. And we give them good data, VIA gives us great data, and we give that to the towns as far as getting more information out there and figuring out if the town, really needs the bus themselves. And I think that's kind of the discussion with their town folks. So.
Because that means a full-time person,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
bus, and then the maintenance. Okay. So you said Johnstown and who else is it?
Fort Lupton has had more conversations with us about that. I think they just see the need so much that they're looking at it themselves. So.
Maybe the southern triangle of Weld County, if you bring Evans into that. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions online? Just so we don't forget y'all?
Nothing.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Adriana.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Okay, discussion items. 2023 call for projects follow-up. Anna Rose.
Thank you.
There's my roundabout. No,
I
that's not mine.
don't remember,
That's not mine.
I think this is one of the pictures that Wells County
Yeah,
sent
Yeah,
to
that's
us.
the one coming.
Which is in the face of our.
That's a little far out.
All right, so wanted to have a discussion following the call for projects to get input on the process, so that we can make any changes necessary for any future calls. I did have the survey up for about a month. I did only get 6 responses from 4 communities. So please, feel free to give additional input during this discussion, even if you didn't complete the survey. So I'm gonna go through kind of just some of the highlights, not the complete review of the survey. So the first thing was just looking at the scoring criteria. Generally, there was not really any notes on that. As you all know, we work with the TAC and Planning Council and NOCO to revise scoring criteria prior to each call. And this process is going to continue because there's always things that are changing through the transportation planning process that we need to incorporate. So, and through the process, there was definitely some of the scoring criteria that we saw maybe didn't work out exactly as well as anticipated. So as we go into an MMOF call and future federal call, we will continue to revise that process. One of the notes on the discretionary points, and kind of given how those points were filled out by the communities, it didn't really seem to make a whole lot of difference. There was a note that didn't really see any value in that. So I think it was good to test that out, but probably won't be something that we'll continue on, as most people kind of just did a standard across the board instead of different or differing. So I think that that's probably something that we won't continue on in future calls. So there were a lot of notes about the applications, and so we had switched to the Excel workbooks as opposed to the fillable PDFs, and there was general support for that. There was also general support for having the one application for all funding sources as opposed to multiple. But there also was the request for you to be able to include multiple funding sources on one application. So that's something we'll look into in future calls. That wasn't something that we had necessarily anticipated going into the process. So that's something we can work on in the future. There was a note about converting Excels to PDFs, and I think just and some of the character limits that we have set in the applications, that the character limits were intentional, but I think one of the things is we didn't really specify how we wanted those applications to be sent to us, if it needed to be a PDF or the Excel document. And so I think just being clear on what we're looking for will help some of that confusion. Looking at some of the things about data, I think that we'll continue to review the availability of data, and specifically with safety and crash data. There were some notes about using standardized data across all communities, but there was a lot of discussion prior to the call opening about wanting to use locally specific data when it was available. And so I think that's just an ongoing discussion that we'll have about what data is available. And one good thing is looking at the availability of crash data from CDOT. It is more complete data sets now, and we have been getting it a little bit more quickly than we had in the past. So I think going into future calls, hopefully we'll be able to have better data for everybody to use. But I think just keeping on the table that there's always a lag in data from CDOT, and so I don't want to rule out local agencies being able to submit their data if that's something that we still continue to want to do. So just wanting to note that that is something that we are, that we'll keep in mind. There was a note about better access to the tools being used by NFRMPO staff, and allowing project sponsors to either complete analysis on their own or to check the MPO staff analysis, the calculations. And so I think as we go into a future call, building in time for us to kind of have that review of analysis will help with that. There were a few notes about TA specifically, and so we will have a discussion with NOCO by DPED about looking at kind of the process for TA and things like that. And so wanted to bring that to TAC first as well. One of the things was we had allowed for project sponsors to present prior to the call opening to NOCO, but we hadn't specified if that was required or optional. And so just specifying if it is required or if it's optional. There was some discussion about the wayfinding requirement. We had incorporated that into the scoring criteria, but that didn't take into account that some projects already have wayfinding already on the ground. And so just clarifying that, we're getting to the point of the wayfinding requirement, which is that wayfinding is included, whether or not it's included in the scope of the project is something we just want to make sure to not penalize a project that already has wayfinding for it not being included in the project. There was also a comment about the allowability of funding for TA to be used off of RATCs, and I think that's kind of a larger discussion about our regional corridors and our funding being used for those, but that just wanted to make a note that was a comment we received. Additionally, with NOCO, they will be reviewing the kind of the process for consensus and voting requirements. We did have some communication issues with the call for projects this time, and we want to acknowledge that, but then also making sure that we understand what the process for NOCO's like voting and consensus rules are as we move forward. I don't know if that some of the NOCO people wanted to add any more to that discussion.
That seems pretty good overview.
Can I ask what, I'm not on that, but can I ask what the concern was or what?
There was some concern about the number of people who scored the applications. We only had, I think, 4 people submit scores for the NOCO applications. And then also there were additional people at the scoring committee meeting, and so whether or not if you submitted scores, you're still a voting member, or if only the voting members, just kind of clarifying that process, and also making sure that there's like geographic equity with that as well. There are some communities that from the MPO that are not represented on TAC, and so making sure that some of that, like we can get that, especially when it comes to things like TA and call for projects, things like that, get that representation within NOCO.
Is it set up similar where there's a voting member from each community or?
So technically, yes, but NOCO as a group, I don't think they ever really had a vote until this call for project, so we never actually used it. So we are as a group discussing how that would work. It will be a direct member or just someone representing a community. So TBD on that one.
It seems like the general consensus right now is NOCO will still try to be consensus based, which is how it's been for most of its history. And if it comes where consensus isn't enough, then they would call for an actual vote, but they would publicize that to the 100 plus people that received the emails to say like, hey, next month we're going to vote on this and we really would like your community to be represented. So that's one of the things that NOCO is looking at in its operating principles, is figuring out. I think people like the informality of consensus, but if you're going to recommend to TAC and this goes to council, having these more formal processes is definitely an improvement. That's definitely something that they want.
Thanks. All right, and then there were just a few notes that we had from the NPO staff side that I wanted to talk about. One is adding into the timeline. I had mentioned time to review some other data analysis, but specifically adding in time for TAC to review the CMAQ emissions calculations at a TAC meeting. So that can be a fuller conversation about looking at the reasonability of those emissions calculations. I think that's all I had to say about that. But then also adding in the possibility of if we wanted to include other data analysis in that as well, but at least having that time for a review of the CMAQ emissions analysis. One of the other things is looking at the performance measure analysis worksheet. This is something that we had implemented a couple calls ago, but through some of these processes, I think there's a better way that we can do that, and so that's something that we'll work on just having a better process for the performance measure analysis. I also wanted to note that there is, if anybody has heard about it, I was sent information about the it's a discretionary grant program through FHWA, the Prioritization Process Pilot Program. And so this is something that the NPO might or is eligible to apply for to create and implement a process for data-driven analysis. So it was something that came out of the bipartisan infrastructure law, and so just wanted to note that that is something that we're going to be looking into. The NFRMPO is supposed to open sometime this winter, so we will keep you all updated on that, but if that was something you'd heard about, just know that we're looking into the possibility of us applying for that, which might affect future calls. So I think that was all I had as far as the follow-up, but I did want to open it up for any other questions or comments about the call for projects process.
I just wanted to take a moment and say thank you. I know the organization and herding all of us beloved cats through this process probably was painstaking at times, but the organization of this, I've been through a number of calls for projects over the years. This was the most fluid, seamless process I've ever been through, and I really appreciate the organization on your side and parsing out deadlines and sort of giving us time to get things submitted, and the organization of it was really wonderful. So thank you for all of the thought that went into that. I know it was intentionally designed that way, but it worked very well.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think to add onto that, Anna Rose, the GIS tool that you guys provided for our applications was critical for our ability to be able to apply for all the things we wanted to apply for. I think if we had to develop that on our own, we probably would not have applied for all the grants that we did. So it made it very accessible, and I know that, there's a lot of our member municipalities in the NPO that have fewer resources for tackling that kind of stuff, so I'm sure they're appreciative as well. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but I know it helped us a lot, so I'm thankful.
I'll be his ventriloquist. I mean, exactly. We would not. We added some stuff. We didn't get into the CMAQ. We're not quite there yet, but eventually, hopefully, we'll get to that point where we can step out of the STBG world and move into some of these other funding mechanisms to do more projects. But
yeah,
it was definitely a fairly easy process.
And just as a little teaser for our upcoming meeting at some point, we'll be talking about just kind of data availability that the NPO has, and I think one of the things I do want to see is whether or not that tool could be used for, or could be helpful for other grant application purposes. I will also say that I can't take 100% credit for that tool. That was Dr. Cog had built that tool, and they gave me the full framework, and I just changed it for the region, which was it was really amazing that they sent that to us, that they've been so willing to let us piggyback off of the resources that they have. Not that any of them are on the call right now, but I am very appreciative for that. So I'm glad to hear that that was a useful tool for people.
Yeah, it was a lot to implement that, I think, for you up front. It's kind of a lot of information to just throw into a call for projects. And I think you did well in bringing that tool at our disposal. And what I can appreciate about the process is you give us enough time to get it through our boards and get all the approvals that we need and all the stamps that we need. So I think, yeah, like everybody said, it went well, really well this year, and just appreciate staff for that.
Thanks.
And spreadsheets are way better than PDF.
It was a lot easier for me too, so.
That is one good point. The sort of setup for the project budgets can be so complex, right? And there's not one size fits all. And I think having the ability to try to tell your budget story using a form is hard.
Yeah.
But having some ability to edit and tell the complete budget story, because I feel like that's something that so easily gets missed when someone looks at, that little spreadsheet, which is what we're asking for in this grant call.
Yeah.
But the project is big or significant and you don't feel like you understand the connection between those two things. I think having some flexibility around the request part and maybe incorporating how the different pieces, how the different grants are gonna go into that one budget, which would be something in the future that we could work on. Making it a little bit flexible, but still having it apples to apples when you're comparing across projects.
All right.
It's like everybody's quiet on there. I don't hear any snoring, like you got the mics up. Okay, all right. Next item on the agenda, FHWA adjusted urban area discussion. Alex.
So this is a pretty quick item, more informational than anything, but so the census comes out with their urban area boundaries after every census. And then FHWA has a process where CDOT and its its communities look at the boundaries to figure out what actually makes sense in the real world. Like, it really doesn't make sense for a roadway like US 34 to go between urban, rural, between Loveland and Greeley when it's used as a primarily urban road in between. And so it's kind of hard to see from afar, but the weird looking, so you can see the actual census boundary, and then these wider areas are what what CDOT is proposing for the adjusted urban boundaries. And so those are related to defining roadways as either urban or rural as part of the federal classification. So this does not impact how much money comes to the region for that. It doesn't impact FTA funding. The big thing is how roadways are classified. And so CDOT sent us this map. We've poked around and it seems like they've covered any place that might make sense for us to look at, but we wanted to make sure everybody was aware, and if there were any comments or questions about the urban area the adjusted urban area boundaries, that there was enough time for you guys to look at it and share back any feedback. So I believe CDOT wants to send this back to FHWA for their approval mid-February. So we asked for the information a few weeks ahead of that, just so that we have enough time, so that way we can pool all of our adjustments together. Are there any questions?
So where are those cutoffs along 34, 392, and then 14?
For which?
So the cutoff on 34 is what? Is that County Road 17?
I think it's a little west of County Road 17. Is there a roadway network?
That three there,
Major roads.
You might have to zoom in to see the major roads.
Okay. That's county line.
It's county.
It looks like it's a little bit.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
County line.
Yeah.
So when we originally talked to CDOT, they were saying, look at places like on-ramps, off-ramps, because sometimes the urban area boundary will stop. So one ramp is included, but another ramp isn't.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And in the discussions that, like in the meeting that we had with CDOT, they basically said, we're just gonna see what we can get away with off the record. So let's go bigger, and if we have to go down, great. But they made it obviously much nicer. You didn't hear me say that. I didn't say that.
I just wanted it on the record, I was not a part of this conversation.
Josie Thomas specifically said.
We know better than that.
But that's why the area is bigger, to make sure that any piece that might make sense, if there's developments that happen that aren't
Yeah,
close enough,
they're
but make
gonna
sense, yeah,
intensify it.
yeah. So like places like Pueblo were saying, like, so when we had those meetings, one of the examples was US 34 between Loveland and Greeley going in and out. And that opened up a bigger conversation for a place like Pueblo where they have people commuting up to Colorado Springs and what that looks like.
Yeah.
So there is a cutoff where, like logically, does that really make sense?
Or there's a spacing between the communities.
Yeah, exactly. But I think for the most part, CDOT has done a good job of covering what would make sense or not make sense.
Will this have any impact on access control plans at all?
That's a good question. I can follow up with Michael Snow.
Is that who you worked with on this one?
Yeah, he's
Okay.
leading this.
Is the 2010 the last version of this, and then we're updating it now to this?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any way you could click on that to see what it was before? And
Do you think it matters?
No.
I would say if you click on the both of now and then start off with the regular,
So they're just gaps. Okay.
yeah, so you see like not all of 34 is covered.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So just a practical application of like that, the like split between urban and rural, when we were doing CMAQ emissions calculations for like the project on 34, you're supposed to specify in the tools if you're looking at urban or if you're looking at rural, but we had this, 12 miles or whatever that was like urban, rural. So like being able to standardize that would be helpful in making those calculations.
Are the bars set higher than for urban areas and lower for rural?
It's just a different calculation using different data for it.
It was bad to admit, I've already forgotten what I was supposed to ask Michael Snow. What am I asking Michael Snow?
Will it impact access control?
Access control.
We also have Phil online. He works with Michael Snow. I don't know
Oh,
if
yeah.
Phil's able to answer that question.
Sorry, what was the question again?
Do the adjusted urban boundaries that CDOT is working on, do those impact access control plans or access control in general?
I'm afraid I'm not the one to ask on that. Sorry. Did you say you were working with Michael on that already?
Yeah, I'm gonna email him.
Yeah, it's probably best.
And it probably wouldn't impact existing access control plans, it might only impact proposed.
Do you have any like examples of how you think it might impact, or is this just a general question?
I think, yeah, there could be corridors where, like in Windsor, I know we have the urban rural transition zones where the developers come to us and, they'll want to prove that the speed limits are reduced so that it actually is more functioning as a urban corridor, which gives them greater access or potential opportunities.
Got it.
And so just trying to reconcile how developers might look at this.
That's a good question. I'm looking at this, I would say, based on this, anything in Windsor would be considered urban. But this impacts FHWA too. So I know at different points, Bolt County has had a slightly different classification for their roadways. So if a local says it's urban versus rural, I think that's your own process. Right. This is just how FHWA is considered. But I'll still double check with you. It might say.
The 392 is a different animal from 34 as well.
Yeah. So yeah, this is just more informational. The link to this map is provided in the TAC memo. So if you'd like to play around and then follow up with me or Mike with any questions, we can work to get those answered or put those in a bigger package to send back to CDOT. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Next item, 2024 outreach,
Promise this is the last thing I have.
You're the star of the show.
So as we are in the new year, we'll be looking at what we do for outreach for this year. And so what I have listed up here are the events that we generally have attended to do general NPO outreach. So that can be, last year a lot of that was revolving around the RTP, but it is also just what the NPO is, what we do. It is covering all of the NPO's programs, and so that, includes Van Gogh and Ride NoCo as well, when we're looking at some of this, but we wanted to just open it up for any input as far as maybe events that y'all know about that would be good for us to attend, or at least to look into, as far as kind of like just general outreach for the NPO. But then another, something that came up in some discussions about our outreach is partnering, or we want to continue to partner with our local agencies. And so one recommendation is when and if our local agencies have like open houses or different types of meetings about more specific projects, inviting the NPO to be a part of those, we want to go where the people are. And so, especially because you all have relationships with your community members. And so if we can partner on that and kind of piggyback on those types of open houses, that would be really great to kind of help tie in what local agencies are doing and what the NPO does. So as we go into 2024, wanted to, and I don't need exact answers to that question at this point, but as you are planning things, or if there's additional people that we can ask about that, we appreciate getting that information. But then also wanted to open it up for any opportunities if people do know of something off the top of their heads of what you're working on, if you're starting a new transportation master plan or anything like that, that you wanna let us know about.
We are gonna do a transportation projects fair in Loveland in this spring as well.
Yeah.
Bring all of the projects together in one place for an open house. We'll get you, we're just in the process of planning that right now, so we'll give you a date.
Yes, that would be wonderful, thank you.
And we'll definitely have multiple open houses over the next 3 years. One of them with the next phase of 37th Street, which is funded from CDOT. So that would be something I would invite you to do. With the local funding, that's not as necessary, but it might be, I can let you know about it, and if you're available, just to hear about it. Because the big thing for us is communication to the public that this is gonna happen, it's gonna disrupt the heck out of your commute.
Yeah.
But also, here's why it's happening.
Yeah, and, especially for projects that are funded through the NPO, and because, with the specific funding types and things like that, people have questions about that. We can answer those, and so, but also just kind of like general or regional projects, things like that. We would appreciate at least knowing about it ahead of time so that we can decide if it makes sense for us to be there. So then the last thing I had was just, once again, the plug for photos. So included in the memo is the link to the Google Drive. So that is there for y'all to include some photos. We love local agency photos. Particularly
back in PIPO, those that I can use for action transportation plan.
It's a good segue.
But that, I believe, is all that I had, unless there are any other notes, comments, questions about 2024 outreach.
Do you do the county fairs?
We haven't, and so I think that I looked into it once and I was overwhelmed.
Which is how you'd feel at the event.
But if that's something that you have a little bit more knowledge about, like definitely, or if y'all are going to be at it.
We had looked into doing, I think
one of the two, I don't remember which one it was, many years ago, and the price, it was cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
Okay.
For us at that time, so.
Yeah, so like something like the Greeley Stampede, they have like a community booth that we are able to attend for free, which is really great, just for one night, but, you know, then we're not limited as far as being there for the full 2 weeks or whatever every night.
What do people stop and ask you? Just out of curiosity, if I saw your booth, I didn't know anything about it, would I really walk up to your booth? What am I asking you?
That, so a lot of times we have to kind of get people to come to us. And so, you know, depending on what we're talking about, our plugs might be about safety. It might be about just kind of general questions about transportation. A lot of the time we try to have some kind of like map of, you know, maybe projects or things that we're working on. But a lot of what we talk to people about is kind of just general transportation. We have a trivia wheel that we talked that really helps facilitate conversations about, you know, with different topics, transit, bike and ped, air quality, things like that. And so a lot of what we're doing is education about what our organization is and the work that we do, and then that can feed in more specifically about like, you know, oh, well, you know, what about this intersection in Severance type thing. And so we try to, in theory, take notes about like those specific things to be able to share. Some of it, a lot of times, is just really general, like there's too much traffic.
I-25 terrible.
Yeah.
When are we getting the train?
Yeah.
I-25 is wonderful.
And they do have a lot of giveaways, and so they generally attract children, and then they bring their parents with them, and then we start the conversation. We talk to the kids too. We don't really want to talk to them.
Severance is kind of in a quandary right now, and don't know how many of you are aware, I'm sure some of you are. The council enacted a transportation fee, tagged it onto the monthly water bill because a use tax was declined by the voters, and people are up in arms about it.
Yeah.
So it's things like that as I'm sitting here thinking to myself, how could we have utilized your resources to help educate the population in Severance, which of course there's no tax base, but how vitally important it is to have funds available specifically for transportation and upkeep and maintenance really at this point, because at some point it's residential has to pay for itself.
Yeah.
So it's those types of interesting things. Do you make sure, like, before you would set up a Severance days, if you're talking, or maybe it's my responsibility, that you are aware of any local issues or concerns that you could get bombarded with or approached with, and then how could we partner better with you? I'm just thinking, just utilizing whatever resources you may have or talking points, so to speak, that can be beneficial for our town manager, our council folks, our finance director, when filtering those calls that are coming in, questioning and very upset folks. And then of course, the rumor mill is rampant, so helping keep tabs on our social media as well. So you can kind of see it goes like this, but I'm sitting here and thinking, okay, you are out in these communities, and how can we, as a community, pull on your resources to help us with our internal struggles? Because if you came next week to our community and had no clue about this transportation item we're dealing with, you would get hit up with it, and you would have no clue how to answer that. So, you see what I'm saying? Like, how do we make sure that when you're gonna show up, that, or any of these events, is there something local that's a hot topic that we need your help communicating why the importance and value is?
Yeah, I think that kind of historically, some of that would just come from discussions and updates, you know, during TAC meetings, during council meetings. But I think that's a great idea to kind of have some kind of avenue for you to give us, you know, a heads up or whatever. And so I think that would be really great. I don't know what that exactly looks like right now, but we'll think about that as we go into the process. But I can imagine that would be some questions that we would get about like how that works. And so just thinking through, like we had gone through the RTP process, which included the fiscally constrained plan, which includes all funding types, including like the local fees and taxes. And so the education behind like some of that, of like how much it costs per mile to repave a road, things like that, you know, and how that, the funding that you're getting through your fee would play into that. I think that's something that can definitely, would be something that we could talk about.
Does it make sense what I'm asking? I know it's kind of in a roundabout circle, but
Right.
I see where, I don't know if in fact you all were tapped to assist with how it was done in Severance. I don't know, I'm just speaking off the cuff, but I can't help but think that if there's a way to utilize the resources and tools at the NPO to help us better communicate with our citizens.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you just talk to somebody else and they've already gone through it, they can give you some ideas of how to better communicate that message and why it's important, so. And if they're hearing from some other than their elected official who they already don't like because they're elected.
Right.
I love that idea of normalize, like during our roundtable part, normalize and like, hey, we're going through this. Has anybody ever dealt with this before? Just having that opportunity to use this as there's so many great ideas I always hear at these meetings and can call you later and say, hey, Omar, what are you doing about this situation or how have you handled this before? And this is just a great place for that kind of support.
Yeah, I'm just new to this table. I'm just still writing down acronyms saying. Oh, there is. Okay, good. So I keep writing them down. I mean, so most of them I'm familiar with, but there's a few you guys keep yelling out. I'm like, oh my God, what is that? So, but yeah, I can't help it.
Feel free to ever interrupt us and ask us what an acronym is, because we often just use it so much and we don't remember that other people don't use it.
No, but I just see that tool and being out in the community as resources and how do we tag on your resource? We might not be eligible for some of these bigger projects like the Big Five, whoever that is. I know we're not the Big Five. But how do we tap into the knowledge and resources sitting here as we work on items that are really small but hugely important in our communities? So, yeah.
We kind of went through the same thing when I first got to Evans. We had a 1% sales tax that they pushed, and they didn't push it very well, so they failed miserably. But then they came back, and the council still wanted to move forward with it, so we presented it again the following year. But there was a little more marketing, a little more effort on the part of the community as a whole. And this was outside of staff, because obviously we can't do anything.
Right.
But this was the council talking to businesses and then putting it out there, and it passed. And we've been able to do great things since that, and now we're putting it on the ballot for next fall to extend it because it sunsets, and we need it on the ballot next year.
Yeah, sunset on the fee, and it's very important to say fee versus a tax, so.
Well, and I struggle with that because we have a development going in Evans right now with a metropolitan district, and the guy came and presented that whole thing to the city council and talked about how he hated taxes and he hated taxes, but he wants us to tax with his metropolitan district. He was happy with that. So that's like, two-edged sword there, I think. But for me, and this is my personal opinion, it's not a tax, it's an investment in your community. But most people don't see it that way. And that's just me thinking, I'm willing to pay a little extra on some things, and in my personal opinion, it should be on property and not sales, but that's a whole nother argument. But investing in your community is something we all need to do. And you look at the infrastructure around the country, we're at a C or D level everywhere. And if people aren't willing to invest in their communities, we're gonna go to F pretty soon. And you're all gonna be boiling your water all the time. So that's my soapbox.
Build across the river on our family bridges.
Start looking for your transportation infrastructure and like it wants.
100%. Thank you for just letting me ask that just general question, just when you're out in our communities.
Yeah, and so as we get closer, particularly to the summer events, I think it might make sense for us to just have a topic of discussion of like, these are the things that we anticipate discussing, our planning projects and stuff that are coming up. But then also asking for like additional feedback on what is happening within each of these communities. And what would you recommend us being prepared for?
Perfect. Yeah, so you're not bombarded when you come into the community that it's all your fault.
I mean, it's always our fault anyway.
Yeah, why not?
Alex, what is happening?
Here's restarting.
Oh, okay.
Everything's recording.
Right?
So they're all in the blind right now?
No, he's.
I'm doing minutes.
Oh.
So I think I just lost all of my.
Oh, no.
I
I
don't
should
know.
have had that one as a strategy, guys.
Nothing to look
My
at.
computer needs an update. It's not gonna work today.
You guys like trust me.
I believe that's all I had, so thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like
Okay,
to add events to that, do we just email you with that?
Yes.
And Brad had a comment about an event in the, chat, or the meeting.
Transportation projects there.
Yes.
I'm sure Alex wrote it down in his notes.
Yes,
Actually,
we are also.
yes, we already signed up for that.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
thank you. All right, outside partner reports, they're all in the handouts. And then for NOCO, Pike and Penn, the regional transit agencies, and then mobility updates. Anybody for that?
That would be me. Hi, everyone. My name is Brooke Baitolo. I'm the mobility planner for the mobility team, here to give you our updates today. That sounded very weather reporty. I'm into it. Okay, so big update that we had this month is the 60 plus ride van has finally been delivered. Waiting the better part of a year for that. So everyone's very excited. The ribbon cutting was fantastic. And folks are getting ready to use that all over the place in rural Weld County. So very pleased to have all of that worked out through CDOT, and it is now in operation so far as we understand. Our second and final update is the first phase of the transactional data specifications project for Ride NOCO has been completed. It has resulted in a new kind of software system called Call Sheet, which is going to be our new internal way of keeping track of our calls to the call center. It is a real-time updatable document and eventually will be plugged into the TDS specs and software and fancy things that I don't understand, so that eventually we will be able to cross-schedule across other transportation providers in our region. So first step of that with the call sheet is going well. We don't have any big issues to report there, and we're excited for the next step. But thanks, you all.
Thank you. And then after that, we have written reports for the planning council. Fourth quarter 23 tip application, CDOT inactives, and annual reports. Any updates? Anybody have questions on those?
Just a quick note, Becky, we sent you
Yeah.
an updated inactives report, the one that Deanna pulled didn't send correctly, so it left off the local agency identifier, which isn't gonna be much help to any of you, so a new version.
That's his.
Yeah, a new version has been sent, thank you, Dee, for getting that over to Becky, and Becky will, I'm assuming, send it out. Yes, I can send it out.
Thank you. And then roundtable, we'll start to my left and you can work around.
We have a public open house for a roadway improvement project, new road connection between County Road 19 and State Highway 257 north of our downtown. So we're working on an alternative route to downtown Windsor. So that open house is from 5:30 to 7:30. It will be at the Public Services Facility off of County Road 15 here in Windsor.
Nothing for me.
So, on April 20th will be the Great Western Trail grand opening. The trail's obviously open, but it is complete between Severance and Eaton, which will be our first RATC that is done, which is exciting. More information will come out from the Great Western Trail Authority, but I just wanted to share that news. Very exciting.
And exciting news, I have recovered my documents, so we won't be using it again. Yeah, let's not go.
So a couple things that I have. I had talked, I think last month maybe, about the federal reconciliation process and how that affected the call for projects. That also affects, the funding that we had for FY23. And so I will be reaching out to some project sponsors about, there won't be any reduction in funding, so don't worry about that. There might just need to be some shifting of years to get us to be balanced. So just a heads up for projects that are like FY23 rolling into FY24, FY24 and 25. I'll be reaching out to some project sponsors to get that all evened out. Also, the award letters had theoretically been planned to be sent out yesterday, but I was stuck in Chicago for additional days, so that didn't happen. So that I'll get the award letters sent out probably either starting today or tomorrow morning. So those are in the works. I think that was it that I had for that.
You know, I just want to say thank you so much for having me. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Nothing more.
I probably should mention it. So you guys remember, we did our 2023 4P meetings, our county meetings that federally we're required to hold every 4 years. We like to do them though, so even if that went away, we would still probably hold them. We get a lot of good input from our locals at those meetings. This last round, we did meet with our 13 counties here in Region 4. We had 331 comments. We have broken that out by county, by TPR. We've categorized that data. Alex is looking at me, wanting it.
Yes.
So I am presenting that information at our upcoming 4-chair TPR meeting, which is at the end of this month. It's kind of our first stop shop. We meet with our TPR chairs, our transportation commissioners in Region 4, as well as our staff reps. And it's really our first wave of fleshing out processes, information before we start taking it to the TPR level. I am more than happy to present it at the TAC level if you guys would like that. So I wanted to open that up to see if you guys would, okay.
I'll say yes.
Okay. It will be a short presentation. I'll make sure you guys all have the comments and data that we have. So you guys have it for your own areas as well as to what's important that we heard. Nothing's going to surprise you, I don't think, but we will be using all of this information for when we go for grants. Also, we have a 10-year plan and just long-range plan update happening here this summer. So we have no idea how many dollars we're going to get for that, but we'll use things from the 4P meetings as well as projects that are in the out years on the 10-year plan to either maybe reprioritize funds for higher priority projects because priorities may have shifted or projects may have been funded with other sources. And so I just want to make it known that every comment we heard, we have tracked and we know who said it, how they said it, what the response was in the meetings. And also we have action items that we are tracking ourselves as well. We take it very seriously. So I just want to say thank you all. A lot of you, not all of you, participated in our county meetings and they were great. So more to come on that, but we can present on that whenever you guys want.
Can I ask a question about the 10-year plan? Is that a process that will be inclusive or is that internal to CDOT only? Or how?
Oh gosh, no. So it is a CDOT led effort, but we do everything working very closely with our TPRs. Historically how it goes, and it could change. We get our figures figured out for how much funding we're gonna have. Region 4, we have a modified RPP formula, so we know target areas of how much funding should go to each TPR or MPO. We then work with our internal CDOT region staff, our resident engineers, program engineers, RT, paddock, traffic, all of them. And we put together a general first whack at it of where we think the priorities are. Some regions would say that's probably sufficient, and this is where we're gonna make the investments because that's what CDOT wants to do. We don't do that. We then take it to our TPR level, our MPO level, and we get general consensus. We want to make sure that our locals are in support of where we're allocating these dollars. It's a very fair process. It's something that we do very well in Region 4. But part of that is the first phase of that is taking it to the TPR chairs and the staff reps and all the things. And generally, once we get their consensus and their buy-ins, taking it to the TPR level is pretty easy because the TPR chairs, the staff reps, they know if something's going to hit or miss. And so we're fortunate for that group because they do steer us in a very good direction. But yeah, there has been occasions, especially with Eastern and Upper, I will say, Northfront Range, the priorities are very laid out. So it's pretty simple. Up until now, it's been 925, right? So it's been very easy to allocate dollars in the NFR region. When it comes to other areas that have priorities that can differ, clearly we have their long-range plans and their RTPs that we can go off of, but it's also a conversation of where the priorities are at that given point in time. An example of this could include 14 has risen to the tops in the Upper Front Range area. I live in that area, and I've been to community meetings on it. There's a lot of safety concerns along 14. Last 10-year plan, I don't think we heard much about 14. I do feel that we're gonna hear a lot more this go around. So it can change. But yeah, your input and making sure that Loveland is in support of where we're allocating our dollars as well as everyone else. It's important to us. It does also go to the Transportation Commission for approval as well as STAC. And so there's a lot of opportunity throughout for public comment. We always want to have our local agencies be in support and not say they weren't involved in the process.
So the hierarchy is TPR, STAC, and commission? Is that right?
Yeah, and technically we don't need the TPR's approval.
Right.
We do like to gain that. It makes us feel more confident in our recommendations if we have local support. We can't do, you guys know our funding woes. We have 42 cents on the dollar for gas tax. It hasn't been increased since 1992. We have had Senate Bill 260 and we've had little things to help us. But that 42 cents would probably be $1.30 in today's inflationary rates. So we have this much money, this much need, especially out east. If you look at our roadways, it's appalling. So we do have to make difficult decisions, but we do come to these meetings explaining the choices that we're recommending, and 9 times out of 10 people understand the why.
Nothing to add?
So our roundabout on 74 and 33 is coming along. We'll be opening here, I think, on February 21st. So some good news there, and we're excited to get that one done. Had to extend it out a little longer than we would have hoped, but it's nice to be at the finish line here, or close enough. And just some organizational change with Weld County. Elizabeth and I were in the Public Works Department, and Elizabeth was appointed the interim planning director, and so we are headed over to planning. She's taking me with her, so effective last week, we're in the planning department, which is a nice change, and we'll be able to assist with planning, and we'll be representing public works and transportation and related items along with other things. So that's some good stuff there.
Congratulations,
yeah.
Elizabeth.
So I'll be helping her as much as I possibly can, and for one thing, I'll be taking over as the TAC representative for this group, and then she'll be the alternate. So that's just the plan for now, and we hope to represent the county well and enjoy working with you all. So some good change. So
When did you say the roundabout?
I think it's the 21st, but I'm hoping
February?
earlier. Yeah, February.
So we have a traffic signal on 23rd Avenue. We'll go under design. We'll kick it off either late this week or early next week. We awarded the contract last night. We are going to advertise the next phase of 37th Street widening going east from our first phase for another quarter, 0.3 of a mile in February, finalizing some coordination with a development that's happening on the south side of the project, so we get it all tied together nicely. Other than that, we're moving forward with our other road maintenance stuff, and we've got a bunch of projects in design because we're going to be building roads for the next 3 years in Evans. We'll wrap those up, and if the money does fall from the sky and we get uplifted into the call for projects, we'll build 35th Avenue as well. So a lot of work going on in there. Thank you very much. And if there aren't any other comments, questions, anybody online have any updates?
City of Greeley, this is Bushan. a couple of updates. We just finally completed the procurement process for getting a consultant on board for our SS4A grant that we had. So WSP is a selected consultant. So they'll be helping us develop the action plan for the city of Greeley. That's one update. We are getting ready to release a couple of RFQs here. One of the RFQs is for the Poudre River um, restoration initiative. It's basically taking a look at the Poudre River between the long range growth area for the city of Greeley from west all the way to the confluence with the Platte River. So there's going to be more information on that coming out. We'll obviously be looking at getting a stakeholder group together comprising of the coalition for the Poudre River watershed and in the county and surrounding cities. So once that procurement is done, that's and then we are in the process of finalizing the RFQ for the to take the 9th and 10th street projects from the concept to through preliminary design. Still waiting to hear back on the MPDG grant for the merge project. Don't have any updates yet. We didn't get the rural. Still waiting for infra and mega decisions to come out. And we are still waiting to hear on the reconnecting neighborhoods grant that we applied for the 9th and 10th Street. I have no idea what's happening with that one, but still waiting to hear back from the feds on that. So those are kind of the updates from Greeley. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Bujal.
this is
I will tell you, I enjoyed driving around Pune. It was a lot of fun. Your hometown.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Justin Stone with the town of Tinmouth. So we're still working on our transition from TST to in-house staff. We did hire Earl Smith, will be our senior civil engineer. He started last week. I'm working on getting another engineer, hopefully get approval by council here in the next couple of weeks. So it hasn't been determined who will fill Eric's role. I know, moving forward, I'll attend these meetings, for now until we get that determined, but just wanted to let you know about that.
No other comments? We can call this one. Thanks, guys. Yeah, if you want to see traffic,